satisfied with these solutions. They certainly were confident themselves. Now, continuing our hold at the T-minus 8-minute mark, this is Kennedy Test Control.
We have with us right now an old-timer in this area, a man who was here from the very early inception of the space program, Al Schaff, who was news director of a local radio station for many years, and he just reminded me, as a matter of fact, he bawled me out because I had not remembered that a Vanguard failed on this same date. Al, tell us about it.
Well, it was 15 years ago in 1957. Of course, you weren't in Brevard County in those days, but I was here, and it was December 6th that the first Vanguard, we had a failure, which no doubt today we realize it did put the space program way behind until we had the Jupiter launch. But it seems ominous that World War II started in about a half hour, December 7th. And here we are, December 6th. The first Apollo has not met its scheduled commitment of 9:53.
We're sure that all three were going to work properly. Now, continuing our hold at the T-minus 8-minute mark, this is Kennedy Launch Control. The reason the T-minus 8-minute mark is chosen for this hold, as mentioned earlier, has to do with the chill down of the thrust chambers in the S2 or second stage and the third stage. Both of these stages use liquid hydrogen, an extremely cold or cryogenic fuel, and the thrust chamber must be conditioned prior to flight so that it's ready at the time of ignition in flight to receive these fuels coming in. To achieve the proper temperature, the thrust chamber chill down should not exceed 20 minutes, but it must be on for at least 7 minutes and 40 seconds. So rounding that off, the hold was called at the 8-minute mark. We can continuously hold it at this point, whereas if we continued on down, we would have to watch these parameters very closely so that we did not exceed that 20-minute accumulated cooling time. At this point, we can continue our hold, and that continuation can be determined by the problem, and we can pick up then at any time or continue as long as necessary. We're continuing that hold now, T-minus 8 minutes and holding. This is Kennedy Launch Control. Mark, back at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, crews there are at work on a breadboard or a mock-up of the system in question, where they're putting it through its paces, checking out the workaround solution that is jumping around this erroneous signal, and ensuring that everything works properly. The crew is still standing by in the spacecraft, updating various systems there, updating their flight plan, all continuing to go well there. The crew at the Manned Spacecraft Center also doing considerable amount of updating. They'll be continuing to update the azimuth, and the Launch Control Center here at Kennedy Space Center, the launch team manning their consoles, standing by to pick up the count when we're given the word to go. However, we're standing by still at this time. We have no word from the Marshall Space Flight Center. We're expecting that to come within 10 to 15 minutes from this time. Now, T-minus 8 minutes and holding. This is Kennedy Launch Control. Test Supervisor Bill Schick just announced here in the firing room that the hold is expected to last approximately 20 more minutes. Liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen continue to be replenished aboard the three stages of the launch vehicle at this time. That replenishing will continue during the hold period and during the final minutes of the countdown. Countdown continuing in the hold, T-minus 8 minutes and holding. This is Kennedy Launch Control. This 8-minute mark. Work still going on at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Updating of the tracking, continuing at the Manned Spacecraft Center in Houston, and the launch team here at Kennedy Space Center preparing to pick up the count. Hopefully we'll be given a go-ahead to pick up the count in approximately 10 to 12 minutes from this time. Continuing to stand by, waiting to hear from the testing going on at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville. To recap the activities earlier today, the countdown picked up at 11:53 a.m. after a planned hold period, picked up at the T-minus 9-hour mark. Shortly after that time, the pad was cleared, and we began loading the cryogenic fuels, that's the liquid hydrogen and the liquid oxygen, aboard the space vehicle. Those operations actually went a little bit ahead of schedule. The astronaut crew went out to the pad, entered their spacecraft, began checking it out, and those operations also running a little bit ahead of schedule. We went on to our terminal countdown sequencer at the 3-minute 6-second mark as scheduled. Everything seemed to be proceeding fine. At the T-minus 30-second mark, we got an automatic cutoff. It was determined that this cutoff came because pressurization of the liquid oxygen tank aboard the third stage was not initiated automatically as it should have been. When it was done manually, the terminal sequencer did not sense that this had been done and therefore gave the automatic cutoff. However, the launch window, it should be pointed out tonight, extends to 1:31 a.m. Now, if for any reason we could not make it in that launch window, we could recycle under our present configuration and resume our count, aiming for a 9:53 p.m. Eastern Standard Time launch tonight. The window for tonight is the same as it was for last night and this morning, 9:53 p.m. to 1:31 a.m. However, the launch team appears to be optimistic with the solution they have found to the problem. They're just waiting for verification and confirmation from the testing going on at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. The time now is 7 minutes after midnight. We're continuing to hold at T-minus 8 minutes. T-minus 8 minutes and holding. This is Kennedy Launch Control. At this time up there. Meanwhile, here in the firing room, all elements of the launch team are assessing their position. They are assessing the effect of the hold and this amount of hold time on each of their systems. Everyone at this time busily at work here in the firing room, also at the Mission Control Center in Houston, busy there with their flight updates. Now continuing to hold at the T-minus 8 minute mark, this is Kennedy Launch Control. To hold at the T-minus 8 minute mark, Test Supervisor just indicated that we plan to pick up the clock at the T-minus 8 minute mark in 10 minutes, planning to pick up the clock at 25 minutes past the hour. The tests being run at, or have been run now at the Marshall Space Flight Center and indicate that our system is good the way it has been reconfigured. All elements now during this 10 minutes will be preparing their various systems to pick up the clock at the T-minus 8 minute mark. Meanwhile, out at the Manned Spacecraft Center, the flight controllers there are also planning to pick up the clock. We just received a go from the Superintendent of Range Operations indicating that the range has been cleared around the new flight azimuth. Manned Spacecraft Center Houston flight indicates that they are go to pick up the clock at 25 minutes past the hour. Now T-minus 8 minutes and holding. This is Kennedy Launch Control. 8 minute mark. We have approximately 5 more minutes remaining in that hold. It's been determined that the workaround is a correct and satisfactory one. A breadboard or a sample system at the Marshall Space Flight Center was used to run through the entire sequence as it's now configured, and that operated satisfactorily. What happened was during the terminal sequencer, the liquid oxygen tank was not pressurized automatically, that the LOX tanks have not been pressurized. A breadboard situation of this has been constructed at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, and this has operated satisfactorily. So it's been determined to go ahead with our countdown on this basis. We'll be planning to pick up the count at the T-minus 8 minute mark some 4 minutes from now. Now T-minus 8 minutes and holding. This is Kennedy Launch Control. Apollo Saturn Launch Control, we're now resuming the count. T-minus 7 minutes, 54 seconds, and counting. At this time in the spacecraft, updates being given to the spacecraft commander, Eugene Cernan. The swing arm still at the 12-degree position. That's the park position, standing by at the spacecraft. That will be brought back to the full retract position at approximately T-minus 5 minutes in the countdown. The flight director just ran through his team, a status report from his team at the Mission Control Center. That team all reported they are in a go condition. Now T-minus 7 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control.
There you have it. The countdown has resumed. We're at 7 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting. Hopefully, we will get off now within the next 7 minutes and begin that journey of Apollo 17 to the moon. I would like to have heard some comments from the astronauts, but obviously Mr. Hollinshead is not going to give us any of the comments from the astronauts.
Well, we'll be lifting off if everything goes all right, Les, short of 3 hours late. And it's tomorrow, of course. This is December 7th, and we go by Eastern Standard Time, naturally. And if you want to head outside, I'll go ahead and ad lib here. Do you want to bother going outside again?
Tom, I'm not a pessimist. I want you to understand that. But I'll stay right here in the trailer until we get down to about the T-minus 1 minute mark and are continuing to count.
Well, where's the mic we take outside? I'm heading outside.
This is the mic that we take outside.
Oh, here, you can have this one.
I do think, though, that it would be wise for us to sort of bide our time here. They seem to think that they have convinced the computer.
This is Apollo Saturn Launch Control, T-minus 5 minutes, 40 seconds, and counting. At this time, the various elements of the launch team have been reporting into Bill Schick, the test supervisor, indicating that we are go to continue. Mission Director Chet Lee just verifies that we are go for launch. Safety indicates that we have a go. First stage test conductor, this is the man who has charge of those 5 first stage engines, which will give us the liftoff, has indicated a go for launch. Launch operations manager Paul Donnelly also giving us a go for launch. And finally, the launch director, Walter Caprian, says we are go for launch. We've passed the 5 minute mark now, and swing arm number 9. This is the access arm to the spacecraft, is coming back to the full retract position. It moves back alongside the mobile launch tower, and it will remain there now through the final portion of the countdown and the launch. At the T-minus 60-second mark, 20 nozzles will start flame deflector deluge of 13,000 gallons per minute of water pouring down on that flame deflector. So a great deal of what is seen at launch time, which looks like smoke, is actually steam as this water is burned off. This water to cool the pad area and to cool the equipment alongside of the launch tower, as the water also pours across the swing arms and the launch tower. We're approaching the 4 minute mark in the countdown now. T-minus 4 minutes 5 seconds and continuing to count. At the 4 minute mark, we'll stand by for a final go from Norm Carlson, the launch vehicle test conductor. He's given a go. The launch operations manager now switching over to the Astrocom circuit. This is the circuit that the astronauts, the launch operations manager, and the spacecraft communicator will remain on. They have this private circuit to keep extraneous talk off of their circuit. They are checking in. They are checking in now on the Astrocom circuit, indicating that they are go. Spacecraft has indicated they are ready. Instrument unit ready light has come on. S1C at the first stage. Preparations are now complete as we approach the 3 minute mark. There's quiet in the firing room now as the engineers and technicians are monitoring their consoles. They're monitoring the various rates, pressures, temperatures. They can override the terminal sequencer if they cite a problem that it has not picked up. We are on that terminal sequencer now. We've passed the 3 minute mark. T-minus 2 minutes, 47 seconds, and counting as we are on the terminal sequencer. At the T-minus 50-second mark, we'll be looking for that critical power transfer. This is where we transfer from the external power source, which has been feeding the 3 stages of the launch vehicle, to internal power. That's to the flight batteries aboard the space vehicle. It's expected that given proper weather conditions, people will be observing this flight from as much as 500 miles away. This includes a large portion of the southeastern United States, the northern tip of Cuba, and the Bahama Islands. Now approaching the 2-minute mark. T-minus 2 minutes and counting, and the countdown continues to move along smoothly. Now in the terminal countdown portion. The automatic sequencer has stopped the replenishing of the liquid oxygen and the liquid hydrogen. We're standing by now to begin pressurization of the fuel tanks. The 2nd stage fuel tank pressurized, 3rd stage fuel tank pressurized. The countdown continuing to move along smoothly. T-minus 90 seconds. T-minus 90 seconds. Countdown continuing smoothly. S4B propellants pressurized. The indication now using the workaround showing the S4B propellants have been pressurized. Now looking at the liquid hydrogen tanks as they become pressurized. LH2 aboard the 2nd stage pressurized. All propellants now aboard the 2nd stage pressurized as we approach the 1-minute mark in the countdown. Mark T-minus 1 minute and counting, now in the final minute of the countdown. At T-minus 45 seconds, Gene Cernan will make the final guidance alignment. This is the
Move over here.
mark. T-minus 45, and Gene Cernan made that final guidance alignment. That's the last action taken by the crew aboard the space vehicle. Now approaching the half-minute mark. T-minus 33, T-minus 30 seconds, and continuing on now. Continuing on at the T-minus 26-second mark, T-minus 25. We'll get a final guidance release at the T-minus 17-second mark. T-minus 17, final guidance release. We'll expect engine ignition at 8.9 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, ignition sequence started.
We have ignition.
We have ignition. 2, 1, 0. We have a liftoff. We have a liftoff, and it's lighting up the area. It's just like daylight here at Kennedy Space Center as the Saturn V is moving off the pad. It has now cleared the tower.
Brilliant, guys. Daylight. And here comes the roar. Okay, David, we got air roll is complete. We are pitching. Brightest daylight here at the press site when that Saturn V lit up on dynamic pressure at this point. 4 miles downrange, 8 miles high, and the velocity approaching 3,000 feet per second. That's great. You can hear the applause of the reporters here at the press site. The joy at the launch of Apollo 17. And in the background, you can probably hear some of the foreign reporters.
Stand by for mode 1 Charlie, 15. Mark, mode 1 Charlie.
And the flight dynamics officer says we look good on all sources, right on the trajectory. Right on the trajectory.
Here, go.
Flight director Gene Kranz taking a status for staging. We center engine cutoff and should be right now.
Inboard cutoff. Roger, inboard. Inboard engine shutting down on time as planned.
We should have the outboard engines cut off very shortly now. Just about 10 seconds.
Crew will experience maximum G-forces of about 4 Gs at shutdown. Coming up on first stage shutdown.
There it is. You could see it.
We've had shutdown on time on the first stage. 5. Roger, they're looking here. Looks good.
Well, at this point, people all over now, the southeast should be able to see it.
I think we saw them all from here. Roger, Jack, and the thrust is going, all 5 of them. They're running good. Okay, 3 minutes in, we're go. Roger, 17.
Another winner, Max. Another winner. That's the voices of Gene Cernan and Gene Kranz that you're listening to right now. As they communicate back and forth, everything right down the line.
Roger, vote 2. Steering head's converged, the CMC is go. You're going right down the pipe, 17. Okay, Bob, I do confirm guidance. That's the automatic guidance system, the inertial guidance system performing properly. Breakers, and we've seen it all. Ignition, staging, and tower. Roger, got you. 17, now 65 miles high. Okay, 4 minutes and we're go here, Bob. Roger, Gene, we're going around the road. Let's go here. You're looking real good, Gene. Right down the line. Okay, 4:30 and we're still going board. Roger, 17, you're go. Let me tell you, this night watch is something to behold.
Gene Cernan, Matt. This night watch.
About 5 minutes. Everything still looks very good in the launch of Apollo 17. The launch vehicle spacecraft now 80 miles high, 230 miles downrange. Gino, and you're go down here. You're looking great. Okay, Robert, we're go here at 5.
Clear communications between Mission Control and the Apollo 17 spacecraft. 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Your times are nominal. Level set time at 8 plus 36. F2 shutdown at 9 plus 20. Nominal times. 8 plus 36 and 9 plus 20. Roger. Capcom Robert Overmeyer advising Gene Cernan and the crew aboard Apollo 17. The second stage shut down at about 9 minutes 20 seconds elapsed time. It'll shut down about 3.5 minutes from now. Stand by for S4B to COI capability. Mark, S4B to COI capability. Roger, S4B to COI, we're going 6. Roger, Dino.
Six minutes and 15 seconds into the flight now.
Apollo 17 still right on the nominal trajectory at an altitude now of about 92 nautical miles. We got 4 good motors and we're going 620. Roger, 17, we copied the gimbals. They're watching. They look good.
We should have the center engine cut off on the S2 of the second stage coming up in just about 1 minute.
Stand by for S4B to orbit capability. Mark, S4B to orbit capability. And we got Omni Delta, Jack. Roger, you've got it. Roger. 7 minutes in, and we have sufficient velocity to make orbit with the Saturn third stage should we have an unexpected early shutdown of the second stage. Good on board. Roger.
Everything going very well. now, the astronaut?
The center engine will be shutting down as scheduled in about 10 seconds.
By traveling at
Roger, Jane inboard on time.
almost 45
And that inboard shutdown looked to be on time. Apollo 17 now 625 miles downrange, 93 miles in altitude.
8 minutes and we are go.
Roger, 17, you're looking great.
The outboard engines now will cut out in about a minute and 10 seconds.
The spacecraft guidance system is agreeing very closely with the Saturn guidance. It looks good. We're staging.
Thank you, Bob. We are go for staging up here.
Staging now less than 1 minute.
This is the separation.
You have level set time this time, Dean.
Roger, Bob.
Quickly separate bar 3. Here we come. Mark, shut down. There it is. On the mark. S4B should line up.
And we do have S4B ignition.
That's the one we wanted. He's the one we wanted. Lit up. He's on the way.
We saw that one too, Bob.
Roger.
That means in a few more seconds, not much longer, she'll cut that third stage off. She'll be in parking orbit around the Earth. And then they set it up for that slingshot maneuver to the moon at 7 miles a second.
We're up to 23,000 feet per second. We'll be shooting for something over 25,000.
We're coming up on the 10-minute mark into the flight.
15, the steering has converged. The CMC is go. You look